Hi. So what are we? Okay. All right. So we'll wait for 2 more minutes for others to join. Okay. If they don't turn up, we'll get continued. Okay.
And you're connecting internet to your laptop through your cell phone internet. You're going on hotspot, right? Yes. Okay, hotspot. Where is hotspot? I don't see it. It's in my computer, but I don't see it. This one. You go to your study, reading on table. It is. Okay, hotspot. Saw that. Okay. Oh yeah, I saw that as well.
I don't think they'll turn up today. So yesterday we were looking at what are we looking at? What did we see?
Defect life cycle.
Defect life cycle. Apart from that, we have understood like what are the different kinds of environments we have. Right? We have what are the environments we have?
We have a developer environment and testing environment.
And production environment. There are totally 3 environments that can be in place. In developer environment, all the development activities would be happening. Likewise, in testing environment, the entire testing activities would be happening. Production is for your release. You're going to release it into your production. Okay. All right. So here, for our example, what we have done, we have taken the enrollment as an example, right? So first we have picked up enrollment. All right. So that was implemented and was tested and delivered. All right. Now here, different types of testings are possible here. You'll encounter different types of testing here. So what are those types? Yes, smoke test, sanity test. So what is smoke testing? What is sanity testing?
Smoke is to make sure that the primary functionality of the application does work before we.
Right. So before we accept the build for testing all the functionalities, so what we do, we test the build for the higher functionalities, whether we have the high level functionalities available or not. If we have all the high level functionalities available, then we'll consider the build for the testing activities. So majorly what we'll check is, as part of smoke testing, is whether the build is withstandable for our further level of testing activities or not. So we have to check that, and that is why we'll be going over the smoke testing activities. Likewise, you have the sanity, as in when you release a particular build into the production, what needs to happen? It needs to be tested, because you're giving it to live. It doesn't mean that after deployment you just leave your hands, but you have to ensure that all the functionalities are working fine or not. So that is why you go with a sanity test. So in between smoke and sanity, or within that particular entire cycle of testing activities, you'll be coming up with the terms like unit testing. So when we are covering the V model, I have termed this unit testing, or we discussed about what is unit testing. So what is unit testing?
Step by step.
It's
It's a sectional testing of a particular application.
Testing at the code level, correct, Madhavi? Right, unit testing. Right. Developers write the source code. So he will be testing his own code to ensure whether his code is doing the functionality, the intended functionality or not. And that is what your unit testing is all about. So he'll be testing the code. Alright. So testing the code to check whether the intended functionality is achieved or not. Right. So this is done by developers. You able to see the font?
Yeah.
Right. Better? Alright. So this is done by the developers. Unit testing is the activity done by the developers where they check whether their code is achieving the intended functionality or not. Okay, so what is module testing or component testing? Did we discuss this?
we talked just briefly about component testing.
Yes, testing the each and every component or module. This activity is done by the test engineers. So here we will not be testing the code, but we are going to test the output of the code, and that is nothing but your black box testing activities. Alright, black box testing activities are initiated on the module. Alright, you're going to, in short, what we can say is you're going to test the modules here or the components. Like in our example, enrollment is one of the module for us, billing is one of the module for us, claims, common service, all these are nothing but your modules. So as and when a module is implemented, we are going to test, we are going to initiate the testing activities on that particular module, and such kind of a testing is nothing but called as your module testing or a component testing or whatever the terminology that you use. Okay, now when you have all the modules, what we have to do, when you have all the modules developed, like you have the enrollment, you have the billing, you have the claims, you have the common services, so what you have to do, you have to integrate,
Talk to each other.
right? So you have to integrate. So as and when you do, as and when you integrate the components, we have to perform integration testing activities. So what we do as part of the integration testing activities, we will ensure whether both the modules are, not both, maybe one or whatever the modules that are integrated, whether the transfer of data is happening properly or not, or communication of data is happening properly or not within the integrated modules. That is what we do as part of our integration testing activities. So testing initiated to ensure that the communication is happening properly between the integrated modules or the components, whatever you say. And such kind of testing is nothing but called as your integration testing activities. Alright. So once all the modules are integrated, then what we get? We get the complete system. Alright. So all the modules are integrated. So far what you have done testing on a module level, integration level. Now when all the modules are integrated, you are seen with the complete system, or you have one complete system. And testing initiated on a system, or testing initiated on that entire modules which are integrated to become a system, or you can say that testing the system as a whole is nothing but your system testing. So far what you had either enrollment module or a billing module or a claims or a common services or integration of the module. Once all the modules are getting integrated, you got the complete healthcare application. Now you are going to test the healthcare application as a whole. Prior to that, you are testing it individually or combinedly, but not a complete system was not formed prior to your system testing. But at the end, what you have got, you have achieved a complete system. Now what you have to do, you have to test the system as a whole. Okay, you have to drive through all the areas of that particular entire system, and such kind of a testing is nothing but called as system testing. In short, you can say testing the system as a whole is system testing. All right. UAT, in short, you can say user acceptance testing. So user acceptance testing is done, or UAT is done keeping end user in mind, or in view, you can say, keeping end user in view. So finally, after your system testing activities, what we do, we are going to deliver this to the client. So what client does, client will be employing his own resources who are called as UAT resources. Okay, they are called as your UAT resources. So those resources, what those resources do is, they will consider the BRD documentation. So what does the BRD documentation say? BRD documentation will say what the system is supposed to do. Right? Login, they'll check the login. Funds transfer, they'll check the funds transfer. Bill pay, they'll check the bill pay. Adding a payment, they'll make a payment added. So they'll check in the normal flow as a general user. Okay, because prior to that, all your testing activities are initiated. Now, when at the time of your release, what you have to do? Now you have to check whether the completed application is useful for the end user or not. Whenever we release this particular application into the market, whether end user will be able to use that particular application properly or not. Alright, so to get that particular confirmation, what the clients usually does is they employ the UAT resources. Yes.
Do you think there's a very fine line between system testing and user acceptance testing? Because is user is actually testing the system, right? Because whether the entire functionalities work, whether I'll be able to enroll in the plan, that's more of a system-wide thing, right? So it's the system testing and UAT testing is very, very much close.
You can say, like I'll tell you, system testing. Okay, let's say I'll give you an example. Cybertech is doing work for Aetna.
Yeah.
Okay, Cybertech has completed all the system testing activities. Now, Aetna will accept directly our efforts? I mean, whatever the things that we deliver, will Aetna accept the things?
No, they will employ their own resources. Yeah.
Now, what they have to do? They have to double check the things.
Yeah.
Why? If at all go into the market directly, what happens? If at all something is going wrong, then again their business goes down, right? So what they do, they double check the system. Whatever the entire system is implemented, they double check their system. Now, when double checking their system, they need to have their own resources. Again, if Aetna asks, Cybertech to do their particular UAT resources, again we'll give the same system testing results, right? So what they do the testing activities, or they get the testing activities initiated by the UAT resources. So here what does the UAT resources do? The UAT resources will work on the application in a normal general user way. Like, let's say I want to create a user, like I want to create my own account. So what they do, they will not apply all the negative functionalities over there. They'll check how a general user will act on that particular application. Like I gave you the create a Gmail account assignment, right? Before I have asked you that, what you have done, you just gave your own way of, your own method of creating an account. You did not test in a negative manner, right? Same is the case what UAT resources does. All right, they will not come with all the flows out of it, because all the flows are already been tested here. Now they have to ensure whether their application is eligible for the complete set of deployment or not. Okay, so that is what UAT testing is done. That is why UAT testing is done. Now UAT testing is done at two places. One is at developer environment, and the other one is at production environment. And testing done at the development environment is nothing but alpha testing. Testing done at the production environment is nothing but beta testing. Let me show you the beta testing application.
Jet.com has a beta testing as well.
Sorry?
Jet.com.
Jet?
Yeah, it's a new website coming in like Amazon.
JET?
JET, yeah. It's in beta.
Thanks. Did they give that is in a beta version?
Well, it was, as of yesterday, it was a beta. On top of that, it was.
They were saying it was beta, right?
Yeah, it was beta. That's why.
Okay. Now they don't see it.
Yeah, probably it's
Let me show you. When I applied for my UK visa, I saw this. I saw that this application was.
See, new beta. It says use the new beta service.
If you are in China, we are not in China. Wait. See, this is how you will be seeing a message.
Oh, I see, yeah.
Alright, this is how you will be seeing a message that the application is in beta version. Now, why do they give such kind of things? Yes, they don't want to lose the market. They still release the application, but they give a message over there. And what they do is they keep on tracking the usage of that particular application. Okay, because an unwanted errors may come into that particular application, because they are migrating this. Earlier, if you look at the UK visa application, it was the older version was a bit different than the newer version. Now they just migrated. On migrating, they have to make the application available to the users. Okay, so what they have done, they migrated it, and they are capturing all the user actions. Okay, like if at all user is able to make some, if at all user is trying to apply for a UK visa, but then there was some error that was recorded, and because of which he was not able to. So as and when he hit the submit button, as and when an error is getting posted, this error will still be appearing at the developers of this particular site. Okay, where they track that particular error and they try to debug as why they got this particular error and everything. Why did they get this particular error and everything?
So it's active.
Yeah.
Testing is active.
Yeah. So Yahoo Messenger, for some days it was a beta testing or a beta application. All right. So alpha application will not be a production application, because the testing is done at the development environment. But beta testing is done at the production live environment. Because the more number of users access that particular application, you'll be able to get the more number of results. Okay, because why this is done? Because It depends on all the possible situations, the network, the area, the availability. Based on that, you may get different kind of errors. Like I'm in a poor zone, poor network zone, and I'm trying to operate the application. Okay. So because of which loading of pages may go wrong, right? So because of which if I hit the submit button, it may load or it may not load. Alright. So what they do, they track it, and based on that, they'll come with a requirement saying that this application is best available with so and so configuration, so and so network, everything. They'll be publishing everything. Okay. So that is how.
So
Yes.
relatively large application that has a mass
Usage.
customer base go for beta testing, right?
Yes. Every application which is majorly attracting the customers usage is more highly applied on that particular application. Such applications will be going for beta testing, and they'll make the users act on that particular application. Okay. And if you still see, like if you know any of your friends who are working in Apple or Samsung, before delivering the devices into the market, what they say is they give the devices to their employees, to their own employees.
Yeah.
The newly manufactured devices are given to their own employees, and they will ask them to do all kind of their daily activities. They'll not ask for them to test. They'll ask them to do the daily activities. What they used to do.
Maximize the usage.
Yeah, maximize the usage. What they used to do on their normal phone, they ask them to do on these particular newly devices, so that they'll be tracking those particular errors and everything. Okay, so that is how. So that is why this kind of testings are initiated. So UAT testing is done at two different environments. One is at developer environment. One is at production environment.
What is the development environment?
Oi.
Because you are doing a UAT test,
Yeah.
and then you are mentioning developers. Who is the developer here?
Oi.
Yeah, the developer is before the application is released to UAT. I understand that developer environment before they give it to the UAT, before they finish, production and release. Now you say after release, they now send the application to the customer, the owner of that application, who is now going to employ his own team to
I'll tell you. Understood complete point.
UAT testing.
Now, yesterday we were discussing on a point, like from which build needs to be deployed into the production. Which is the configuration management team deploys the build. But which build needs to be deployed?
Yeah.
Testing build or developer build? Developer build. Okay. Now, why UAT is initiated on this environment and this environment? Yes, UAT resources are employed by the client. But why do they do at both the ends? Because to ensure that these results are equal to this results.
Are you saying that UAT is involved in this process here, in this graph that you have?
Yeah, that is what I'm saying here, right?
So it just
See,
I think
see.
it's a little confusing as well. So
Okay.
before the software is produced and released, the customer doesn't check it.
Oh.
Right.
Okay, I'll tell you. Fine. Assume that here your unit testing is done. You're clear? Before deploying, they build a build. They are going to perform your unit testing. Is this clear?
Yeah, that's clear.
Perfect. Any questions? No questions. So as and when we are going to do the module testing and the component testing. Perfect. Clear? Assume that we are only releasing the enrollment, nothing else. Enrollment is going into production. Okay. So that means I don't have any integrations here. So I am not going to do any integration testing. So I will be having the entire enrollment as one complete system. Perfect. So till this particular build 2, I will be having all the 10 defects fixed, and wherein my complete system is formed, right? So I'm going to do the system testing. 100% true. Perfect. Understandable. So what did I say here? Yes, I'm confirming this particular build. That means my build is without a defect. It's a defect-free application. Now what needs to be done? What needs to be done?
The configuration
It's confirmed. It needs to be accepted by the user.
What needs to be done?
the configuration team now push it to production.
Yes. Configuration management team, what they do, they pick this particular build. They will not pick this particular build because this is having all the junk data. They pick this particular build and deploy into production.
Before you go any further, please. At this stage, who is doing all this? Cybertech, for instance, right? The person doing all this process is Cybertech.
Okay, Cybertech.
Right? Good. Now, Cybertech now pushes that build 10 defect fix to the configuration to production environment release.
Configuration management team that belongs to Cybertech will pick up this particular build and push us into the production. 100% clear?
Yes.
Clear? Now, as a general user, okay, as a general user, let's take Aethna as a general user. Aethna is the client for us.
Yes.
Now, what Aethna says is, I will make a testing activities within the production environment, also in the developer environment. The reason why is, now within the beta environment and within the production environment, Aethna wants to track the issues from the from the live world, right? Live world. Okay. Likewise, they will be initiating the testing activities at the development environment.
I didn't know that. I didn't know F Alpha will be involved even before you release the application. I was thinking that Cybertech has to do everything, because when we were talking about this,
you're not getting me. Let me complete it. Okay. Then you talk it. Okay. Don't get confused. I'm trying to clear. I'm trying to come out with a complete point. If you stop me in between, then you'll end up in nothing. Okay. That is what. Okay. Let me complete it. Now, what they are trying to do, they are trying to initiate the testing activities at the developer environment and also at the production environment. I said there are two different environments now. Okay. Now, why do they do the testing activities? Why do they employ their own resources doing the testing activities on the development environment and also at the production? Now, at the production, if general user is accessing that particular application, he has encountered a particular error. Now, what they have to do? They have to check whether the same error is reproduced on the production environment or not, on this particular build. Right. So, if they were not able to get that particular issue over in the production, in the development environment, then it can be related to, now that defect is related to their unavailability, like the user's environment. The defect belongs to the you can say the problem that belongs to the user's environment, the place where he is accessing or the configuration that he is using. So what they do, they check on what basis this defect is occurred. Alright. But if the same defect is reproduced here, alright, if a defect which is placed in the beta environment, the production environment, and also in the developer environment, if the same defect is reproduced in both the environments, then Aethna can directly ask the system test, what did you test? How did you leave this particular defect? Right? How can a defect leakage has happened? Making you understand? Were you able to understand now? The reason why both the things are initiated. He has to make sure that whatever the system testing activity is done, they are in shape, perfect in shape. So what do? They will not test only on the production environment. So what happens generally is, if they test only on the production environment, and if they come up with the issues that, yes, I have found few issues in the production environment. Now what the possible answer that we can give? We can say that it works fine for us. It may be your problem, your environment problem. Making sense? Yes.
Okay, so I think it's kind of your making point here. So the build 2 that's being transferred to production environment, right? Knowing that one of these replica of build 2 is now defect free, that's why you can transfer over to production environment, right? So these are copy paste of the same.
You're going to push the original source code as a copy into your production environment.
Yeah, exactly.
So it will be there.
It will be, the original is there now, it's copied to production environment. So you're saying that you have to do a parallel testing at one end, so that there might be a problem at one end but not problem at another end.
you have to ensure it. Like
Yeah,
let's say this is my what do you say, production environment, this is my development environment. Now, if clients say that I have a defect in my production environment, and why was this defect not found in the system testing? What the system testing people does, they'll say that we have verified it thoroughly and we did not figure out this particular issue. It might be your production defect. Okay. So in order to cut out that particular answer, what client does, they'll also initiate the testing activities on the development environment. Okay. Because tester has confirmed that whatever the build that was released from the development environment, it was successful and is confirmed with.
Okay, just one more question. So now, okay, these two parallel testings are being carried out, right? So you were saying that, okay, this whole system, like, okay, Arthur is a developer environment, I'm in a production environment. So company A, like let's say Aetna, is asking his team to do testing at his Arthur's environment as well as my environment, right? So they will be employing resources at his environment as well as my environment.
Environment in the sense, you'll be accessing their environment.
Yeah,
he will be there over there itself.
Their own site, yeah.
Yes, perfect.
Their own site, so they're accessing at a developer environment.
Yes.
Okay.
So Aetna has access to the testing that Cybertech is doing, even when it's in progress.
Sorry.
Aetna has access to the job that Cybertech is doing, even when it is in progress.
Cybertech is in progress?
Cybertech is testing, right? And they are in this developer environment, and Cybertech is going to push to production environment. But at the same time, in parallel, Aetna has access to what
it is not going to do in parallel, my friend. Just listen to things. Once you confirmed, then Aetna will jump into the activity. Unless you confirm, Aetna will not touch any piece of your application.
I agree with you. Once you confirm it's defect free, Aetna has access to start testing.
Right.
And Aetna is doing a UAT testing. So that means they are testing even before we release the application to them.
Why are you thinking that we are not releasing?
No, we already released, but it's just an environment different.
Yes.
So we already released.
It's just like a user acceptance testing on development basis and.
Perfect. See, when I say pushing the code, it doesn't mean that I'm pushing the entire code. I'll be having a copy of the code exactly as it is. Okay. So I'll be having the application here, and as well as I'll be having the application here. Now the testing activities needs to be initiated on this one as well as on this one. Now why these testing activities are initiated on the both ends? Now for a very simple reason, like let's say at the beta application, when testing on the production environment, if there are some defects that has encountered D1, D2, now if the client asks the testing team, like I got 2 defects in my production environment, what have you tested? How did you pass the cases? Now what system test does? System test team does that, or system testing team will say direct answer that we have verified it and it worked at our end. It might be some production errors or some deployment errors. And that is why to overcome that particular answers, what client does, client will also initiate the testing activities on this particular application. So the system testing team cannot say that it's a deployment errors. They have to blindly accept their mistake. Making sense now? Understand? Sorry, understood? I'm sorry. I'm trying in my possible ways. If at all I'm not able to reachable.
No, it's a good discussion.
It's a good discussion because I was kind of like, in the beginning I didn't know that they will have access to that.
Okay. Because we have already done the production thing, we have already released, and again it is on the development.
No, it's not again. Every time you'll be having the copy in each and every environment. The application is made available in all the 3 environments. Unless it is fully implemented, fully developed, and the contract between Aetna and Cybertech is end, till then you'll be having the source code with you, everything. Once the contract is done, you have to give your entire source code to them. So you'll not be having any more access. Till then, even Cybertech will be having access, like Aetna will be having the access.
So this is, I think, in another term, let's say like, I'm doing a design of a newspaper, and then finalize the design. I have a printout, which is let's say a production, a printout. I'm going to show the customer, okay, can you check, make sure everything's right here. And I'm also giving electronic copy. They can work on and make changes by themselves, which is a developer environment, giving them a printout, which is a production, right?
It's basically the cross-check from Aetna.
Yes, it's basically a cross-check by Aetna to see everything is smoothly implemented or not. Okay, and that is why UAT is initiated at both the ends. One is at developer environment, one is at production environment. And that's the reason why they don't push the code from your testing environment, because testing environments already has got all the junk kind of data within their databases. So they will not touch the testing environment. They'll only touch the production environment, development environment. Okay, so this is nothing but your UAT testing. Okay, so any other questions from anyone regarding UAT? Is alpha and beta testing done at the same time? It can be done at the same time, Madhavi, or it can be done at different times. So it's possible. First they may go with alpha, then they may come up with beta, or they may carry out in parallel. But most of the cases, they'll handle it in parallel. Okay. So if not, because of their timing constraints and everything, they may carry it in parallel, or they may go with alpha first and beta next. But alpha needs to be done at first stage. At the very first stage, alpha needs to be done. Okay. Fine. All right. So these are your different types of testing activities. And then, yeah.
Beta testing appears to be like a continuous testing process. It's always active. It doesn't have a timeline where it stops.
It depends on the client.
Okay.
Right. It depends on the client. How long he wants to carry out, he'll be carrying it out. All right. Till he gets a confirmation that everything is happening properly. If you see this application, I got my visa. Right. I applied for my visa in the month of March 2015. I saw this application is in beta then. I still see that this application is beta. So they're still doing their activities.
Yeah, it was beta yesterday. Because,
So he might have got confirmation he was all good, so he might have released it.
Yeah, it was beta for like a couple months.
Yes, it is the first level of testing from the client side. First and final level of testing from the client side. Because he needs to have his own proof, right? So that is why he will be doing this activities. So your unit testing, module testing, integration, system testing, and UAT testing, these are all your high level testing activities. Every level. Now likewise, you have other types of testing activities. Right. See, other types of testing activities are like retesting. So what do you mean by retesting? Testing again. So what do you do as part of testing again?
You go through the same cycle, test cycle, right?
Yeah. Repeat the same process again, or repeat the same steps as what you have followed earlier. Now generally, where do you do this particular retesting? As and when you raise a defect and the defect is fixed by the developer, what do? You repeat the same steps again and again to check whether the defect is really fixed or not. And that is nothing but your retesting. There is another type of testing called as regression testing. This is more important. Alright. So what do you mean by regression testing activities? So regression testing activities is a kind of cross-check. It's a kind of cross-check. So what do I mean by cross-check? Now, let's take a situation. Yesterday we were in this particular situation, right? All right. Right. Yesterday we were talking about this particular requirement. Everyone able to see that? Perfect. Alright, yesterday we were talking about these particular requirements. There are requirements for making a funds transfer from Bank of America to Bank of America. Alright, and we figured out this particular issue 150.56. The amount is getting rounded off to 151. Okay. Now we have raised this particular defect, and assume that developer fixed this particular defect. So what do you do to test whether the defect is really fixed or not? What do you do? You again try. So what will be your another input when you retry?
Take the same step.
Same steps. So test data? You'll say take the same test data?
Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. 150.56, it gave you 151. Okay, so that is fine. Okay, so if you leave that particular application there itself saying that the defect is fixed, okay, you left the application likewise. I mean, you said okay, the defect is fixed and these requirements are working fine. Okay, now let's take another situation that whenever user is trying to input a data like 150.5678, okay, even that is considered as 150.6 as an input. Let me say that. Okay, let me open it. I'll give you more. Okay. All right. So, all right. So what we have done as I mean the defect is fixed. So the defect is fixed. So in retesting that particular defect, you again tested this particular defect with the same input. Now you saw the message as 150.56 transferred successfully. Right, you saw this particular message. Now what you have to do? Will you close the defect? Why? Different. So what will be another input for you? Alright. Sorry? 10.59. Right? This should say that 10.59 transferred successfully. So will you close now?
Probably will try, something else like negative amount as well, I don't know if that's necessary.
Why do you test it?
Because we have seen one error and it's associated with it's entering the number, it's not recognizing the right numbers. Probably, it's better to test.
Why did you get that particular idea? Why? Because you already tested it and you found only this particular issue. Why are you trying to repeat the other test data?
If we are maintaining the first error, if we are correcting the first error, then we need the other error.
Perfect. Very simple. Yes, developer corrected one issue. Alright. Because of his correction, there can be a possibility that earlier working code may be disturbed. Alright. Earlier functionality may get disturbed. So what you have to do, you'll be going with the retesting activities, not only retesting, but you should be also doing a regression testing activities. So what is regression testing here? Whenever there is a code change, you not only test that particular area, but also test the dependent areas around that particular functionality. So what are the dependent areas around this particular functionality? Always your amount needs to be transferred successfully. Now you have given 150.56, it was rounding off to next integer or next value. Now you'll repeat your steps with other set of integers. Alright. Now what if you gave the input as 159, this one? What should it say?
It should say invalid amount.
It should say invalid amount. Right, according to our requirement.
Yeah.
Invalid amount. But if this is treated as a valid, and if it says that 150.60 transferred successfully, So that means the earlier correction has made a change within this particular functionality, which is leading to another defect. Okay, making sense? Earlier it was working fine. Earlier there was only issue with this 150.56, but now there is another issue that has crept into or moved into because of earlier fix. So in order to ensure that the code change is not affecting any of the dependent modules, what we do, we'll be going with the regression testing activities. Okay, so that is what regression testing is. Now, what are the possible situations where we get the change of code?
One is A is dependent on B.
Possible areas when a code change will occur. First one, defects. Whenever you raise a defect, what developer has to do? He has to correct his code. Second situation, change in requirements. Right? As and when there is a change in requirement, he has to make a change into the correct requirement, right? That means he has to alter his code. Alright. So it's a kind of checking your own functionality, cross-checking your own functionality, already tested functionality, to ensure that none of the dependent areas are affected with the current change. Alright, always you have to ensure that whatever the changes that were made, it is not affecting the dependent modules. Alright, a change, or in short, where what we can say is, a change in code should not affect the dependent modules. Dependent modules are areas. Alright, so as and when you complete your entire testing activities, so before releasing into the production, what we do is we make it as a practice of 2 to 3 cycles of regression testing. Okay, why we have to make it as a practice of 2 to 3 cycles of regression testing? Because whenever you are releasing, the build has got 10 fixes. Now here, yesterday I was pointing to this particular thing. Yes, I have got 10 fixes and I am testing only 10 fixes. If I do only retesting here, it doesn't mean that my build is certified build. I already tested this build here, and as a result I got 10 defects. It doesn't mean that I have to test only these 10 defects, but also I have to do a cross check that the fixes of this particular 10 defects has not disturbed my earlier working functionality. So what do I have to do? Not only retesting, you have to also carry with regression testing activities. And why is this done? To ensure that none of the earlier working functionalities are disturbed. Okay. Upon doing the 2 to 3 cycles or 2 cycles of regression testing activities, once you get a confirmation, then you will be giving a confirmation to the builder. Making sense? Alright. So this is another kind of testing. Okay. Performance testing. Now, did anyone buy a gaming CD at any point of time? No? Not yet? Okay. Have you ever installed any operating system any point of time?
Yeah.
Have you ever installed Windows 8 operating system? Or Windows 7 operating system? So what was the minimum requirements?
64 bytes or 32 bits or 64 bits.
That is according to your operating system. But what is your system requirements?
Oh, I see. Processor, Pentium processor.
Yes.
Runs.
Okay, let's forget about it. Everyone drive the car, right?
Yeah.
Everyone. Okay. What is the minimum requirement to move the car?
Start the engine.
Start engine. Okay, engine gets started with some sort of things.
No.
Gas.
Yeah.
You need to have the gas, only then the car moves. Let's say I have 1 gallon of gas. Okay, fine. And I have 5 people inside my car. Okay, and I have to travel a distance of, let's say, 25 miles. How the car will perform?
It depends on which car it is.
Okay, I'll say the original mileage of the car is 39 miles. I have only 1 gallon and my car is fully occupied by 5 people. Okay, only 1 gallon is left. Will I be able to achieve 25 miles?
No.
May not be. It depends.
No, the weight of the passenger will affect the gas consumption of the car.
It doesn't mean that.
It will not make that 39 miles per gallon because of the weight of the passenger.
They give the mileage based on single passengers, not on 5 passengers. Now, whenever you have the 5 passengers within a car, the engine has to take more pressure and it has to push the vehicle ahead. The weight on it and pushing the speed will get effect on the mileage. Okay, it takes that. And that too you are driving within a city and that too in DC area. Will you be able to achieve that?
No.
Definitely not. Because you have to stop your vehicle, you have to go. So what happened to that actually? Performance degraded. Why performance got degraded? Because of heavy load first. Because of heavy stress. The engine was put on heavy stress because of heavy load. As a result, the performance decreased. Alright. Same is the case with your applications. Why Obamacare was not able to open up? Why people were not able to use the Obamacare application? Because all the people tried to attack the application at once. Same times. Right. In the mornings, in the evenings, during the nights, everyone want to enroll by themselves. Right. So they would keep on trying that particular application. The application was not at all responding. Heavy mass volume of people are accessing that particular application. As a result, application died or dead. It was not at all responsive. You have to ensure that your application is equally responsible when you think that your business is operating in the market, and that too you have to estimate the people who will be accessing, the count of people, at least the count of people who will be accessing. Alright.
User volume.
User volume. Perfect. You have to estimate that. Based on that, you have to fine tune your own application so that it will be always responsive whenever you release the application into the market. Okay. Now, for example, another instance. The day of your paycheck day, everyone will try to open their banking application. Will the bank application will be responding in the same way as it is used to respond in the normal days?
I haven't really noticed that.
You haven't noticed that? Try to notice that. On the very first paycheck day, let's say you're in the office, open that particular banking application. It will not be that responsive. Okay. It may take some time to get the pages loaded. Because if all the people are accessing that particular application, it takes some time to load. Okay. So what is happening here, when mass volume of people are accessing a particular application, the response time varies. The response time varies. And that is why what the software applications does these, or software application, whoever get the software applications developed and implemented or released into the market, what they do is they do the performance testing before releasing it. They'll try to ensure that at least a 10,000 volume of people who are accessing a particular application simultaneously or at once is able to load that particular application, is able to see that particular application. It depends on the user perspective. Like let's say enrollment. If they were going to release the enrollment application into the market, they'll definitely try to ensure that at least the first 10,000 who are accessing that particular application, they are able to see it. The next second, the next 10,000. So they'll try to ensure that people are getting the responses in a breakwise manner. Okay, so that is why the performance testing is done. Now, what is performance testing? How well the application is behaving when put it on heavy load, heavy stress. Right? How well the performance of the application is. And that is nothing but your performance testing. Here, performance testing is done by various tools, and there is a different team called as performance test engineers. They'll be using tools like LoadRunner, NeoLoad. Okay, so you have another tool like even you can go with the SOAP UI, which is also a performance test tool. You can load test that. Okay, so they'll be testing this particular load testing activity. So what they do, they'll to access the application by creating around 10,000 virtual users and attacking the application all at 1 second. So they'll try to see how many users were able to see the application, how many users were not able to see the application,
and
how fast they are, and how fast their actions are reflecting on that particular application. All these things are tracked on it. Okay, and that is nothing but your performance testing of that particular application. Okay. Same is the case. Yes. Yeah, because they have many servers. The server size is around petabytes, and it multi-petabytes, I can say. There are many servers where they distribute it. All right, they distribute it according to the area wise, and that is why, as in when you go to Nepal, if you try to access the Facebook, it will ask you again, are you the same user who used to access in US or not?
Yeah, it does.
It does?
Yeah, it does.
It will access.
Yahoo, most
of the social networking sites, they does that.
Even back of America, because when I went to Africa,
Yeah.
It will ask the same things.
who asks your sensitive questions.
Yes.
Even when you change computers too,
Right.
it will tell you.
Okay. So that is why mainly. Fine. So these are all the main level of main different types of our testing, which will be used in our daily life. Okay. So you'll be coming across the terms called as unit testing or system testing, because when you're put at work, you'll be saying that you'll be working on system testing or you'll be working as a UAT test engineer. So you need to know what exactly those terms are. When you say system testing, yes, you'll be having a complete system developed and implemented. You have to perform a testing activities on that particular implemented system, and that is why you're termed as system test engineers. Or if you're working as an integration test engineer, if they say that you are an integration test engineers, then what happens? You'll be checking the dependent model. You need to know what are the models that are integrated, how well they are communicated, what is the communication, what is the data that is flowing from one module to another module. You need to know that particular information. When you know that particular information, you'll be able to test that particular application in more appropriate manner. Okay. So for every testing activities that needs to be initiated, you need to know the requirements of that particular application. When you know the entire set of requirements of that particular application, you'll be in a very good position to test that particular application. Okay. So what we concentrate here within the classes is we'll be giving you the entire manual concepts, manual testing concepts. So far what we have discussed is entire manual testing concepts that will be used in your daily life. Whatever you encounter when you are put at work, whatever you encounter are discussed here. Okay. So these are the main concepts. If you appear the interview by yourself also, you'll be asked all these particular concepts in your interview questions. Okay. Now, so any questions so far?
Sorry, I'm going to drag you back.
No problem.
Can you explain that module testing again?
Yeah. What are these?
Enrollment.
Enrollment.
What is enrollment?
It's components of
See,
modules.
always remember, whenever I say modules or something, assume that I am giving you 10 days of food to you, and I'm asking you to eat all the food in one day, will you be able to eat? So what do? You take whatever you are able to eat today and keep the rest of the things in your fridge or refrigerator. So the next day what you do? You pick up what you wanted to eat, and the third day what you do? You pick up. Same is the case. 8th now wants their entire application to be developed. Now everything cannot be implemented one single day. If you go on implementing everything in one single day, one at a time, what happens? You never know where the defect is exactly coming from. So instead what you do? If you break the things, alright, if you break the things into smaller parts and then integrate it. And another finest example is our childhood days. During our childhood days, our examinations. As and when our school started, we used to have small unit tests first, then quarterly examinations, then half yearly, then finally your final examinations during our schooling days. Why they used to do in that way? Because if you are asked to learn everything on one single day or one attempt, no one will remember where exactly the things are. First, what they do, they make you learn part by part wise. Alright, so monthly tests, then quarterly tests, then half yearly. So for monthly, let's say 2 months has happened, then they make it quarterly, bringing all the 3 months into picture. Cumulative. Yes, yeah. Cumulative one. Then they'll take the half yearly, so they'll bring all the 6 months. Then they'll go with annually. They'll bring the entire course. Alright, whereby the content that is delivered to the student is evaluated. Right, he'll be able to learn the things more appropriate manner when it is divided and then united. Same is the case here. Whenever your application is implemented, whenever your application is asked to implement everything at once, you'll be encountering with many number of defects. But when you break it into modules, components, enrollment is one of the module for me or a component, billing is one of the module for me or a component, likewise claims and common services. When you have these particular components implemented and you integrate, you'll be in a good position to know where exactly the mistakes are coming from or the defects is coming from. Okay. Any other questions from anyone within the entire manual testing concepts? Okay. Right. So what is end-to-end testing? Oh, sorry. Okay. Let me read. All right. So end-to-end testing. It is similar to like your system testing, but a bit different way. So what do you do as part of your system testing? You're treating system as a whole and you'll be carrying with the testing activities. All right. But within that particular system, there are many number of requirements. Right. You have many number of requirements within that particular system. Let's say a banking application. Banking application has got n number of requirements within it. Alright. So end-to-end testing is done on each and every requirement. So what do I mean by that? Now let's say if I take funds transfer as a requirement. So what do you mean by end-to-end? What is the end-to-end requirement of funds transfer?
From the requirements, enough balance to a successful transformation.
Successful transformation. First you have login and successful transformation. Between that you have the requirement saying that the transfer that needs to be initiated within the same banks or a different banks or whatever it is, whatever the other options that you have. So you are going to do an end-to-end testing of a particular requirement. You can say end-to-end testing is a subset of your system testing. System testing, you are treating the system testing as a whole. When you say as a whole, you'll be testing all the requirements. But when I say end-to-end testing, you'll start you'll start with a common point at a starting point and you finish it at the end point, covering all the scenarios in between that.
Log in to log out.
Log in to log out. That is nothing but your end-to-end testing. Okay. Good. Fine. Any other questions? All right. Fine. All right. Assume that this is my Bank of America application. Okay. Now here I have a field like I have to give my username I have a field like I have to give my password and I have to hit the submit button. Please.
The end-to-end.
Yeah.
Yes. So when you say login and log out, the log out is another module.
Oh, it's a functionality. Like your Facebook. Have you opened your Facebook at any point of time? Or a Gmail? Or a Yahoo Mail? So what you do? First you log in into that application. Once your activity is done, what you do? You log out. So logout is a functionality.
It's not a part of the application.
It's a part of the application. It's an action that is done to make you out of that particular application.
Yeah. So, okay. Do you write any another requirement for that, or just
Logout is a requirement. What logout has to do? It has to throw you out of that particular application when you click on it. Right? It has to move you out of that particular application. You should not be able to log in. You should not be seen as a logged in user. You are logged out. No other action needs to be happening on that particular application on your name. Alright. So that is another kind of functionality. Right? Fine. Now let's concentrate on this. Bank of America. Okay. I gave my username. Alright. I gave my password. Remember my password. Okay. Please do remember. Okay. I'm hitting the submit button. Okay. I'm hitting the submit button. What exactly is happening here? How is the application recognizing that Durga Satish has logged into the application? I'm not the only single user. Millions of users are accessing this particular application. I'm not the single user. How is this application recognizing that this username and password belongs to Durga Satish?
No, it has a database of who you were when you first time enrolled. So it connects with the database and makes sure that it recognizes it's you.
Perfect. So the password and your username.
Yeah.
They respond to the requirement of the application. Yeah.
Okay. If I ask you to drive till DC, will you be able to drive without a navigator?
Well, no. Well, you can drive, but
or if I ask you to drive to the class, will you be able to drive without a navigator from your home? Everyone? I'm asking now.
Yeah.
Will you be able to? Why? How?
From because I remember it's in my database.
It's in your database. It's in your mind now. The very first day when you are making a travel attempt, you were watching each and every surroundings and you were keeping everything within your mind. And the next moment, may not be in the second attempt, but third attempt, you'll definitely use your database. You'll definitely use your mind to make your activity. Right? You need not to have a navigator again. Right? But if I ask you to drive to some other place, then you need some other medium, which is non-known to you. Same is the case. Now, whenever an application is developed, the application is a reusable application. Whenever application is a reusable, what they do, they maintain a database. Right? They maintain a database. And the responsibility of this particular database is to gather the information. Every application that needs to be successfully behave needs to have a backend system, and the backend system is nothing but your database. This backend system is nothing but your database. So what does the database contain? The database will contain all the user actions. Now what happens here? username and password. As in when a username and password is given, what happens? It will check. This possible combination is checked within the database, and if it finds that yes, this is the valid username and valid password, then it retrieves the information that this username belongs to Durga Satish.
And you said like it's a repository of users' access. So every time you log in, it's recording that database. It's building up.
It is going to check with the database.
Yeah.
Every time I give my user ID and password, it has to check into the database whether Durga Satish is accessing, whether these credentials are correct or not first. And if so correct, who is this particular user? So based on that, corresponding page is displayed. So what do I mean by that? Okay, let's say that I have $500 in my account. Okay, and let's say Arthur has got $1,500. He's a rich man. He has got $1,500 in his account. Okay, fine. So when I gave my user IDs and password, it recognized that these user ID and passwords are valid. And if it drives me this particular page saying that I have $1,500, is that the correct functionality?
No.
What it actually should display? It should display me with this particular page where I have only $500 in my account. Okay, so what happens here, as and when you give a credentials, it has to access the backend media and get the related information and should show only that related information. It should not show unrelated information to the user. Okay, so how is it going to identify? It is going to identify when accessing the database. So within the database, all the data is stored in the form of tables. The data is stored in the form of tables. Okay, now what does this table contains? These tables contains the related information. Okay, now let's take this table. This table is a user table. All right, and this table can record the data that belongs to user, like user ID, password. All right, first name, last name, etc. Okay, last name. So what happens, as and when you give this user ID and password, it checks with this user table and it derives the related information, and then it throws the corresponding application to us. Okay, so every front-end application has got a backend, and within the backend, the data is organized in the form of tables. And these databases are nothing but your software databases, or I can say, in short, a relational databases. RDBMS, Relational Database Management System. Now, why I have to go with a software application as a database here? Why can't I use the file system? Earlier in the olden days, if you see, everyone used to record the data in the form of files. If you go to any office, you should be seeing you'll be seeing some sort of files. And if at all they want to gather the information, they have to turn each and every page, and it would take some time to give you that particular information. But now you have got a software application. Within that, even though you have the filing system like your Excel, Notepad, Word document, all these are your file systems. Even within Excel or Notepad or Word document, if you have to locate a corresponding data, you have to search, you have to go through that particular entire documentation. You may go with Control F, find statement, but even then it's a time-taking process, right? To analyze the data, again it is a time-taking process. And that is why they have come up with a software application which is going to have the data maintained, and it is going to retrieve the data very faster when compared to file systems. And moreover, when you maintain the data in the form of file systems, anyone can steal it, right? If someone can access my laptop, they can steal whatever the information that I have within this particular laptop. But if the data is stored in my database, if I have a database where the data is stored and the data is protected, because databases have their own user IDs and password, unless you access the user ID and password, you will never be able to steal that particular information. But file system, you can steal. If not, you are able to steal, either you can corrupt that, right? You can delete it, right? Making sense?
Yeah.
So that is why the databases has come into picture. The relational databases has come into picture, where they are going to maintain the data in the form of tables, all right? And these tables will have data in the form of rows and columns. Okay, rows and columns. So what do I mean by rows and columns? Let's say I have the table called as user underscore account. Okay, user ID, okay, password, then first name, last name, right, last login. Let's say these are the fields for me. Now username Durga3484, password encrypted, right, last login, let's say 04 21 2015 17 55. This one. Likewise, there is another user, assume that. Alright, Durga2106. Right. Last login. Alright. Now, how is the data organized here? The data is organized in the form of rows and columns.
Yeah.
Right. How is each and every row is how is each and every column is separated? Using a comma. Right. Using a comma, each and every row is separated. So this indirectly, this is one particular row for me.
And column is separated using comma.
Yeah, column. Sorry. This is one column. This column. One column. And all the data, this is becoming one row. This is row. How many columns we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 columns and 2 rows, R1 and R2. So this is how the data will be organized. Okay. Now, as and when a front-end application is requesting some sort of information to the database, what happens is it generates a code. It generates a code, and that code is nothing but your SQL statements. SQL. Yeah. SQL statements. So SQL is nothing but, what is SQL? Anyone?
Structured query language.
Structured query language. Right, it generates this SQL. Now, how is this SQL will be select? Alright, it may be recognizing the things from user account where user ID equal to Durga3484, and I'm just giving this. I'll explain how this is going to happen. Don't worry about it. And password is equal to encrypted one. It is going to generate this particular statement. On generating this particular statement, it hits the database. As a result, it gets the first name. When getting the first name, it will try to fetch the related information that it needs to be displayed to the user. Okay, so every action that is made on the front-end application, a backend query is generated. You can say it's a retrieving query. So what are you getting the information in as an output? You are retrieving some sort of information that is related to you. So to retrieve that information, you are going to, the application is going to generate these SQL statements. And this is done by entirely the development activity, okay, developers activity. So what they do, they'll be writing their code in such a way that it generates those SQL statements and it accesses the database and wherein it retrieves the related information. If at all there is no user corresponding to 3484 and password, right, and there is no user corresponding to this, then this will not retrieve any first name information. When you don't have any first name information, then it says that user does not exist. Check out your credentials or user ID or password incorrect. So that is how they'll be handling the application responses with the help of the database messages. Okay, to have an application up and running successfully, there need to be a backend media, and the backend media is nothing but our database. Okay, fine. So from tomorrow, what we are going to do is we are going to learn the database concepts. What is a database? How the data is organized within the database? How should we be able to retrieve the data? How should we writing the queries in order to retrieve the data from the database tables? Okay, so a database is nothing but a collection of data, as simple as that. Alright, it's a collection of data, and in order to retrieve the data from the database, you should be knowing the language called as SQL, structured query language. Alright, so with the help of the structured query language, you will be able to retrieve the data, you will be able to modify the data, you will be able to insert the data, delete the data, update the data, whatever the activity that you want, if you have all the permissions. Okay, so this is what we'll be learning from tomorrow, and the thing that you need to have is your laptops, in which you need to have the SQL written it. Okay, try to get it from tomorrow, because the moment you you ignore it, you'll not understand. You'll never ever understand. It's not like theoretical concepts. We are going to do it in a practical way. Okay, if you do not get it, then assume that you're losing it.
Getting what?
Sorry?
Getting what?
Laptop with SQL. Have you contacted Baburam today?
Yes, that I was going to tell you. He said the same thing he told me on Sunday. He said, give the proposal to you guys.
To me,
So,
yesterday did you contact, today did you contact
I
him?
spoke to him on Sunday
Today?
and today.
Okay, what
Today
did
he said, yeah, give your laptop to Neil Achia.
Sunil is not here.
Sushil Acharya. He is not available here.
You want me to? I can drop it.
Yeah,
Drop your laptop
I can
in
drop.
his place. I'm picking up mine. I
Yeah.
dropped mine yesterday.
You can give your laptop to him.
Yeah.
It has some.
Sonija, RDBMS is nothing but your relational database management system. We'll be discussing more in detail tomorrow. Anyways, never worries. No worries about that.
Pick it up.
And based on the password that you entered while signing up the account, yes, the password that you have entered at the time of signing up the account will be stored in your database table. So always what it does, it hits the database and check whether the password that you have entered is the same password that is stored in the database. If it is not the same, then you'll see an error message.
Mine, I dropped yours.
Okay.
So call tomorrow so that where does he live? He lives probably 10 minutes from here.
Yeah.
So you can call him.
Is that okay, Madhavi? Did I clear your question? All right. So, were you able to successfully install the database in your systems yesterday with the recording that I gave? If not, please try to install it, because we'll be working it from tomorrow. So please bring that, everyone. Okay? Fine then. See you guys. See you tomorrow.
You cannot install it from there.
Sorry?
You can install it from there. We cannot install there.
It takes time.
See, I cannot install in everyone's machine, right?